Like, we're good. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here on a Monday. Hope you all enjoyed the wonderful weather, unseasonably warm weather. I know that if you're like me, my morning started off with a 14-year-old rage baiting me this morning. It was so much fun. But we are really happy that you chose to spend your Monday morning here. Thank you guys for those of you who had to travel far to be present. I am very happy that we get to be in person and be in community together before we head out for the rest of the year. But without further ado, welcome to this November meeting. We've got a lot on the agenda. I'll turn it over to my co-chair.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi.
I'm just going to review a couple of things that we did last time and talk about what we're going to try to go over this time, and make sure that everybody's got copies of the materials in your handouts. Last time we met in September, and it was a virtual meeting. At the virtual meeting, we had small groups where we went over student safety, student well-being, and student physical health. We heard from experts on topics in each of these related areas. And then in those small groups, most of the small groups, I think, got a chance to start looking at the draft document that we're going to put together for the governor for next year in June of 2026. I don't know that every group got to it because the conversations were so fruitful that I know in our group we got to it in the last 5 minutes. So we are going to be starting working on that document moving forward in the future. So it's kind of a recap from last time. And this time what we're going to look at is we're going to spend some time looking at focusing on those topics that I just talked about, that student safety, the student well-being, the physical health. In addition, we'll have experts today that are going to come in and talk to us about the realities of the work that they're doing on the cell phone policies and the law that was just recently passed. And then we will look at how we can put together the final report that we're going to publish for the governor in 2026.
You guys know all too well, we had really great opportunity from Chatham and Onslow and other examples. We were talking about the cell phone policy of what people were doing across the state, trying to implement those. Now that it is in fact law, there have been some districts have realized they have to change those policies because they aren't as effective as others. And so we are really fortunate to have Chatham and Onslow here to talk about their cell phone policies later on, and we're really grateful for them to talk to us about that today. And then we'll also have another opportunity to work in small groups. I know that time goes by exceptionally fast, as it always has been. And so we'll have time to work in our small groups and learn from our experts on the topics that we are going to talk about and that Billy just referenced earlier.
And so I'm just going to go over the stuff in your packet. You should have a copy of the agenda. You should have a copy of the slides for today. You should also have a copy of some questions that you can ask during your small group sessions. These are just suggestions of questions to go over, and that the facilitator will also be leading during those small group discussions. So you should have a copy of those. And then there's also a feedback form. We do appreciate the feedback. We've often changed kind of the structure of the meeting based off of y'all's feedback. So there's a copy of that in your packet today. Hopefully, if you don't have one of those things in your packet, let us know, and we'll make sure that you get a copy of those. But moving forward, so also want to remind you of the conflict of interest policy, which is on the bottom of the agenda. It's written up on the bottom. I think everybody can read it, but I will go over the main point real quick, and that is in accordance with the State Government Ethics Act. It is the duty of every advisory member to avoid conflicts of interest, the appearance of conflicts of interest. If any advisory council member has known conflicts of interest or is aware of facts that might create the appearance of such conflict, with respect to the matters coming before the advisory committee today, please identify those conflicts and the facts that may create those appearances of conflict to ensure that any inappropriate participation in this matter can be avoided at any time. Any new matters of conflict of interest that arise during the meeting can also be pointed out. Please be sure to identify those at this time. So if there's anybody that has a conflict of interest, based off of the agenda that's in front of you, this would be the time to speak up. And if if something comes up later in the meeting that you need to raise a conflict of interest, you can do that also.
All right, and then just remind everybody that we, of course, have public comment and we look forward to seeing that. And so there is a place on our website, there's a form where you can go ahead and post your public comment. And then we will, of course, look at that as members of the council and provide feedback as we move forward with the policies that we are promoting here. And so without further ado, we are going to move to our first section, and that's the wireless communication and device policy presentations that we're going to hear over the next hour and 5 minutes. I'm sorry, hour and 15 minutes. Gosh, don't ever let me do math. And so I do want, and so we're going to hear specifically from Chatham and Onslow in that order, but I do want to acknowledge that Dr. Anthony Jackson is here. He's the superintendent of Chatham County. If you could just stand up and wave, we really appreciate you being present, making it a priority to be here today. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and have Tracy Fowler, the Chief of Student Support Services, come up from Chatham County Schools where she will present. And then after her, we will have Brent Anderson, the Chief Communications Officer of Onslow County Schools, present as well.
So there's chairs and just like their staff. Waiting the witness.
Good morning, everyone. We actually brought several folks from Chatham County Schools, and we have some slides we'll introduce everyone as we go. I am Tracy Fowler. I'm the Chief of Student Support Services for Chatham County Schools. And we're going to talk to you about just our implementation process, and kind of we did start working with Yonder Pouches 2 years ago. So we'll share kind of our process and what we've learned over the past 2 years.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Poston. I'm the interim assistant superintendent from academic services from Chatham County Schools. And we're here, as Ms. Fowler said, to share about Yonder Pouches and kind of where we and how we got started. I want to share. Too fast there. There we go. I want to try to share our vision and our mission. Our vision is preparing all students for bright and prosperous futures. And then our mission, inspiring learning and empowering all students to be productive citizens. And so we had conversation, Dr. Jackson 2 years ago talked to us as a cabinet saying, hey, we really want to regain our classrooms as far as instruction. We want our kids not to be distracted. We want to create distraction-free zones. And so he talked about Yonder Pouches. And he shared that he had seen a segment on 60 Minutes about the impact of Yonder Pouches at concerts. And we joked at cabinet that if it was good enough for Beyonce, it's good enough for us. So Dr. Jackson brought that to us. And we really had conversation about learning for all students in our classrooms and how do we ensure that kids are learning at high levels and they are not being distracted by their cell phones and their devices. And so that was really the big conversation. And we started that conversation first with our teachers, then our student advisory council. We got student input like, hey, how would you feel if we put your phone in a Yonder Pouch throughout the day? And then we take it to our parent advisory council. We talked to our parents about it. We shared with them about Yonder Pouches. We shared them gave them examples of the Yonder Pouch. We showed it to them what it looked like. They were able to touch it and feel it. And our parents at our advisory council, they were really on board. And our advisory council is made up of parents from all of our schools, all of our 20 schools, and we meet with them quarterly. And they really, it was something they really thought would be beneficial for our students. And so that was kind of the kickoff. And then we started a pilot with 5 of our principals and their schools, and that pilot went really, really well. And so we're kind of here today to kind of tell you about the process and just the impact that it's had on not only our classrooms, but student learning across our district. Now, Ms. Fowler talked to you a little bit about our strategic plan and how that kind of folds into it.
So one of the big areas of our strategic plan was focusing on student health and safety. And so when doing that, we wanted this to be more than just kind of thinking about our distraction-free classrooms, but also how do we also protect our students when we're thinking about their mental health and thinking about social media? Because, you know, one of the biggest areas when we're talking about kids and cell phones is that texting, social media are also just these really huge distractors. There's not many things that go on in student discipline that don't come from something that's happening on social media, something that's happening through texting, things that are going on during the school day. And so we wanted to really think about how, when we're doing those things, not only we kind of keeping the kids focused in the classroom, but also keeping their attention away from things that are harmful. And we have other things. So this kind of Yonder Pouch became one of the tools that goes into this bigger kind of area where we were looking at what do we need to put our kids and keep them safe in school. We have Daybreak Health, which is it is an online platform for therapy that all of our kids at Chatham County Schools have access to. So every child in Chatham County Schools can receive 12 weeks of therapy for no out-of-pocket cost. So that was a priority for us. We have other partners in the community because, you know, teletherapy is not for everyone, but we wanted to not have barriers for students based on any kind of financial burden. We have Gaggle, as does everybody else in the state, but that is something also that we're monitoring kind of what's happening on within the Google suites. Go Guardian. Now all of our classrooms have Go Guardian. We're monitoring our students' laptops. The teachers are able to see what the kids are doing during the school day on their laptops and make sure that they're not looking at other things and also being distracted by the laptops. The Say Something Anonymous reporting program. So between that and Gaggle, we're able to really pay attention to what's happening. Kids have a way to report things to us anonymously. They're able to give us information when they don't want to come to the office. Now, we want to build a climate where kids want to come to us. They want to share information with us. But I think between those two things, we've really been able to address information and issues really head on. And then Yonder Pouch, putting those phones away. And we're going to share more information about not just the Yonder Pouch creating a distraction-free classroom, but also how it's been able to create different types of culture in the school. And then the Zscaler, that's our filter for our internet. So between all of those things, that really creates a package of keeping our students safe within the school. So I'm going to turn it over now to our two principals. We have Braden Robinson from George Moses Wharton Middle School and Dr. Randy St. Clair from Seaforth High School.
Good morning. So as we stated, well, we were very intentional in our conversations about it being a distraction-free learning environment. And so that came up often in conversations with parents. We did not go down the cell phone ban avenue. It was not ever that was never part of the conversation. It was trying to get our classrooms back to focusing on teaching and learning. So, looking at the perfect circle, the golden circle, we have to go back to the why. So we were able to do all traditional middle schools and high schools this year. But as they stated, we had 5 pilot schools and Dr. St. Clair and I were lucky enough to be part of that. We actually asked for it, right? So the how, every student was assigned a pouch. So they get a pouch the same way that we assign them a laptop, the same way we assign them any other school device. It is theirs, they're responsible for it. And then we monitor that throughout the year through Yonder Pouch checks, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then again, the why. We want to encourage engagement, promote that face-to-face interaction. We want our classrooms to not look like the restaurants when you go to and the entire family's looking at their cell phone while they're eating, versus having those conversations. So that was really something we wanted to try and address. So as I said, I'm Braden Robinson. I'm principal at George Moses Wharton Middle School, which is right downtown Pittsboro.
And I'm Randy St. Clair, principal at Seaforth High School.
And so what is a Yonder pouch? We probably should start there. For those of you that are not familiar, here is a perfect picture. It is purely a neoprene pouch, and then the pouch at the top has a pin that goes into the lock, similar to like the devices that you see on clothes at stores and such. And so there's a pin. We're able to slide the phone directly down into the pouch, and the kids lock it. So once they lock it, they keep the pouch with them for the remainder of the day. And then we have strategically placed magnets throughout the school for dismissal times that they're able to go and unlock their phone, they have access, and they leave. One of the things that we often joke about is that parents were concerned, well, if there's 400 kids at Portland or 1,100 kids at Seaforth, how are you going to get that many phones out at the end of the day? You have never seen kids move faster in that period of the time. They're in line, they're moving, click, 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 click. And so that really has not been a barrier to implementation. We also have medical pouches, and we were very clear with the help of Ms. Fowler that this is not just for any kid that has a 504 or some type of plan. This is a true medical need, a student that has glucose monitoring, or they need their phone for a hearing for their cochlear implant, something like that. Then we would make an accommodation to do the Velcro pouch, but it's very few and far between. And again, something that we thought might have been an issue did not end up being an issue.
So how does this really work? What are the guidelines for the Yonder pouch? And so I want to go back to something that Mr. Robinson said, that we were really careful, Dr. Jackson and the entire team, not to use the word ban. We're not banning you from having your cell phone. We are monitoring the use of the cell phone in the school. And so we talked a lot about what does this look like when they come to school? How are we going to monitor that piece of it? And what Brady just mentioned is that this pouch is part of their materials, part of the supplies. Every day they're bringing it with them. And so how it works is that when the school year begins, we have homeroom, and we distribute pouches to every student in homeroom so they know what their pouch is. They're assigned a number to that pouch. It's theirs to keep up with and keep with them through the duration of the school day and the duration of the entire school year. And so as far as arrival is concerned, we tell our students, especially at the high school level, and I'm sure Brandon can talk about this at the middle school level, that this is your responsibility. Here's the expectation. When you walk in this building, you don't have a cell phone. Your cell phone's in your Yonder pouch. Your Yonder pouch is locked and put into your book bag, and that is the expectation. So when they come in, they place their phone and their AirPods in that pouch. The pouch is big enough to hold AirPods. So again, this is another thing that we talk about. We don't want the one AirPod in, you walk around the school building, take the AirPods out, put it away, you'll be okay. And you'll find out through the data that they really are okay. They're not being tortured here. They're really okay. And so they put those things in the pouch, lock it away, and put it in their book bag for the duration of the school day. And I promise you, it's one of those things where we're not going around searching book bags. We're not going around searching pockets. This is the expectation. We don't see cell phones during lunch, during transition, in classrooms. At no part of the school day should your cell phone be seen. It should be put away in the pouch, in your book bag, and there you have it. And so that's how the day begins. And that's our expectation throughout the course of the school day. When it comes to dismissal, as Mr. Robinson just mentioned, it is not an issue getting kids to unlock their pouches. It really is not. We have it set up by buses, by the front entrance. We've got tons of exits in our school building, but they're strategically placed around the school so kids can get to those unlocking devices, and they can't get to them soon enough. And so they go there to those locations, unlock the pouch, retrieve their phones, and they go about their merry way. But they keep that pouch with them. So they unlock it, take their things out of it, keep it with them, and then they do that the very same way the next day. The things in it, lock it, and go about their business. Again, you'll see here as far as students arriving late, we've got a system set up in our school building where our front office staff make sure that those kids understand your phone's in your pouch. In fact, we've got to a place this year where we're asking to show us your pouch. Because again, you got teenagers, they're just unique in how they want to get around certain things. And so we want to make sure that they're not doing that. But again, this has worked out really well as far as just not it becoming a distraction or a delay to kids getting to class or being in class or doing what they need to do while they're there. The expectation is they're in our school building and they're not, this device is not in their hands, it's on them, and put away.
And one of the things that this has really armed, we talked about this too, is it gets rid of the argument, right? And so if we were going to just say we didn't want them to have phones, and then we see a phone, the kid can say, I was texting my mom, I was checking the time, it just fell out of my pocket. This makes it so crystal clear that at no point should we see your phone. And then it also gets rid of that argument. So what we have done is the first is a warning. So if we see a phone, it's, hey, make sure you get that in your Yonder pouch. And then we watch, right? Trust but verify. And then if for some reason they don't have a pouch or they start to refuse, now we're having a different conversation. It's no longer a cell phone conversation. Now it's more of a compliance. Are you doing what you're directed to do by an adult in the building? So it's really helped us get rid of that versus just simply saying, don't have your phone out. And on the unlocking front, Yonder supplied, what was the number? It was for the magnets.
It was one magnet for every 44 phones. And I do want to say, much to our superintendent's dismay, we all managed to get here this morning without any samples of pouches or phones. That is one. Sorry about that.
Don't worry, most of us have gone to a concert or a comedy show where we had to actually.
Raise your hand if you've been to a Beyonce concert.
Okay. More like Chris Rock. Chris Rock also had it.
So our wonderful public information office has put together a video to kind of show it in action for you though.
Let's explore how Yonder pouches are transforming our educational environments for the better through the implementation of phone-free classrooms. Improved classroom environment. Teachers report a more positive and respectful atmosphere when students are less preoccupied with their phones, and teachers can focus on the task at hand, educating, not competing for the class's attention. With fewer disruptions and more engaged students, there's a positive shift in the classroom, making it easier to teach and learn. Enhanced focus and engagement. Yonder pouches help students stay focused. By temporarily securing phones in their pouches, students can concentrate and actively participate in lessons. Less screen time means more face-to-face interaction and engagement, leading to a more productive classroom environment and better academic performance. Increased social interaction. Without phones as a barrier, students engage more with each other, collaborate better on group projects, and build stronger relationships with their peers. This allows students to develop essential social skills that are crucial for the future success in college and the workforce. Taking responsibility for your education. Knowing that their phones will be secured, students learn to manage their time and focus more on their studies without external distractions. This fosters a sense of accountability and helps students develop better habits for managing their coursework responsibly. Student and staff safety. Most importantly, the use of cell phones in a school setting can have a negative impact on a student's mental and physical health. Cell phones are often used to make threats of violence toward school communities. These threats require extended time to investigate. Social media is often used for cyberbullying, threats toward individuals, and instigating fights. The use of a cell phone during a crisis situation can inhibit the student's ability to stay focused on listening to safety directives, finding a safe space, and staying hidden. Students will be able to make contact with parents once it is safe to do so. Yonder offers a range of benefits, from improved focus and reduced distractions to increased social interaction and a safer school environment. By creating a space where students can truly connect with their learning and each other, Yonder pouches are making a positive impact on education. If you would like to learn more about Yonder Pouches and their benefits, you can visit our website at chatham.k12.nc.us and under Resources, click Yonder Pouch Implementation.
So one of the things that I feel like Chatham County does really well is listening to the community. So having conversations with parents, students, educators, and then making changes based on that feedback or using it. And so we have parent feedback, teacher feedback, and student feedback we want to share with you specifically from Chatham County Schools. And so you'll see yellow and maroon, those two on the left are strongly agree, gray is neutral, and then to the right, navy blue and the lighter blue is disagree or strongly disagree. And so as we go through, we ask questions such as, they've improved student engagement during class. So neutral to improved, or has positively impacted student performance. Contributed to a more positive school environment, student behavior, and then overall, has it been successful? And you'll see transparently that with parents, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? Now, Dr. St. Clair is going to share something a little more clear.
So the staff, they took this very same survey. And you'll see the responses there are very different, very much in the range of agreeing to those same kind of questions. In fact, Dr. Jackson can tell you that my PTSA kind of initially kind of started this conversation back in 23-24, where staff and parents alike were complaining about how distracted students were in the classroom, how things were happening on social media, ending up in the school building. And so we're hearing them say that, yes, it has improved engagement in class. You see overwhelmingly they agree with that. And so just a different lens. They're in the classrooms. You're going to hear from one of our amazing teachers in a moment about what that classroom is like when a student is distracted and when they're not distracted. And so they can tell you firsthand because they're in the trenches. They know what it's like trying to compete with distractions like cell phones and videos and what have you. But you can see again, this very last question, overall, I believe the Yonder Pouch program has been successful. Overwhelmingly, our teachers are saying yes to that.
All right, now another stark difference. Students. So when we asked students, we did the feedback survey, but Mr. Poston and Ms. Fowler actually sat down with students and had conversations. Like, why do you feel like this is not the case? And we kind of chuckled when we were reflecting on it, because a lot of the reasons they didn't like it were the reasons we took it away in the first place. Things like, well, I can't reach out to my friends, or I can't check my social media throughout the day, or the things that we were trying to keep away as a distraction was the students' direct feedback of why they did not like the program. Okay. So just showing you that transparently so you can see that throughout the community there is, it's not that everybody thinks it's fantastic, but we have seen some of the changes that positively affect our students. And so, okay. One of the big impacts last year, as we were going through the Yonder Pouch pilot, we were able to see that there was 31% less suspensions in the 5 schools that were piloting Yonder Pouches. And so there was a direct correlation with conduct. Now there could be other things at play, but the year we implemented it was the same year that it dropped that drastically in 1 year.
So again, just talking about the reduction of the things we dealt with on social media. There's there's just a lot of misinformation that happens with students, and you just never know what triggers someone. And so again, having this in place, and it's not the answer to it all. So, and I think Mr. Robinson and I have really talked a lot about this. It's another tool that teachers have to help create a safe learning environment for our students. And again, we can't say enough how much accessibility that students have to social media, how they're always on that. They're connected to it, and things happen that you're completely unaware of. And so this just creates a safer environment for your students. You're not dealing with some of those issues that come about in the classroom that you're really unaware of because they're texting and they're having these side conversations that you're completely aloof to. This just has helped us to say, you know what? This curtails that completely for the most part, and just creates an environment where kids really do feel safe and free from the bullying that happens through social media.
One of the things our parents brought up in our parent meetings, concern was, what happens in an emergency? Like, how do I get a hold of my kid? And our answer was, like, we don't want you to. Like, when the emergency actually happens, it's better for us to have full control of what's happening in the building, and then we're gonna give you the opportunity to reconnect. And so when we talk about school safety, that's another aspect of when we go into a lockdown or something like that, we know that there's not going to be that additional layer that we have to work through, because this tool allows us to just curtail it right from the very beginning. So I'd like to introduce our 6th grade science teacher at George Moses Horton Middle School. She's also the beginning teacher of the year for Chatham County School.
Hi. So you've seen a little bit about the statistics and heard from the admin point of view, but I'm gonna just give a little bit of anecdotal evidence as to why I think Yonder Pouches have been so successful. I'm just a 2nd-year teacher, so last year was my 1st year. And so I've never taught in a school that didn't have Yonder Pouches, and I never want to teach in a school that not once in the entire year, and now I guess like 3 months that I've been teaching, have I had to stop class during instructional time for a cell phone. Not once. And I have heard from my colleagues about the time before Yonder Pouches and how it was a constant whack-a-mole with phones. And I just can't even imagine that, nor do I want to. I think there have definitely been times in the morning where we've had to, remind kids, or in the afternoon, but the fact that I haven't had to pause instruction at all for a phone has just been absolutely incredible. And kind of as we were talking about earlier, we're not searching for phones. I rarely ever ask even to see a Yonder Pouch unless we're doing a check in the morning. And as long as I don't see the phone, it doesn't matter to me, really. I would never tell the students, but if their phone's not in their pouch, as long as I don't see it and they don't make an attempt to pull it out of their book bag, the Yonder Pouches are working. Because students know that the expectation is, if my phone is seen by a teacher, they're going to tell me to put it in my pouch. And if I refuse to put it in my pouch, we call admin, no questions. And so because they know that that's the expectation, and that across the board at our school, all staff are on the same page, admin's on the same page, it's not even a battle. We have students even, Miss Andrew, I forgot my Yonder Pouch this morning. Can I just go ahead and take my phone to the office? Yes, please. And so just on that front, I cannot imagine, what it would be like without the Yonder Pouches. We know what students think, but I agree that data even proves to me that, they're successful. So I have loved having Yonder Pouches. And I think as our students kind of grow up and grow into them, that will just become the expectation even more so. I work with 6th graders, which is the first year that they receive the Yonder Pouches. And so I think that with each year, as they know the expectations, the program will only strengthen. So thank you.
And she's fantastic, by the way. Let me just publicly say that again. But the 6th grade team specifically, they are the first year, and they do an excellent job on the front end. We knew that there might be some extra work in the first week or two of school. We talked about that. And so we've tried to take the burden off of teachers, though, meaning you share the expectations, you go through everything. But remember, I said we got rid of the argument. So I was glad to hear you say that if it gets to the point where I feel like it's a back and forth or a power struggle, we've given them permission, like call admin. And then we'll show up and we will support you in that moment. And that's also highlighted to the kids, like, ooh, Like the one or two kids that try it, when the principal shows up, like it's a different level of like intentionality with it.
Right. If I were to ever see a phone, it would never be my job to, take it, which is great. Like the power struggle is one of the worst parts about the whole phone issue.
So student interactions at the middle school level are more what I would say like kids being kids now. Instead of having conversations about some of like the really heavy stuff that they were discussing that they really had no business talking about, we now see them having conversations during brain breaks, playing tag, little things like that that are more kids being kids. I know you've seen some at lunchtime.
Yeah, the same is true. So we have 3 lunches at our school. You got, anywhere from 400 kids at each lunch. And it's just one of those things where you don't see them in their phone. They're interacting with each other during lunch. We've got clubs. We have over 65 clubs in our school building. And prior to Yonder Pouches, you just would see students go to study halls with their phones. And that was like, well, no, that's not an option. So let me actually get involved in something that I'm interested in. And I think that's a big part of the high school experience. It's not just the academics, it's the clubs. And so now we see that much more involvement in those kind of things as well. Yeah, so again, just kind of not to be the dead horse, but the climate has just shifted for our schools. And again, I'll speak from a high school perspective, having over 1,100 students in our school building. I got to see forth in the 23-24 school year. It's a different place from when I got to see forth to now. Just seeing how engaged students are with one another, and just the fact that the environment, we're not looking to get kids, we're just looking to make sure kids are learning. So that's the big piece of it. Like in the classrooms, their job, the teacher's job is to teach. Their job is to learn. We just want to highlight that and not magnify that. That's the whole point of this. We don't want you to not get what you need to be successful in your classes. I know from an academic standpoint, now I bragged on our school last year because you look at the 23-24 failure rate in my school, we had over 250 some odd failures. After we implemented Yonder Pouches, that went down to 50. So a 76% decrease in failures. And as a high school principal, the number one goal is, are you graduating on time? Are you getting credits towards graduation? That has to, and coming into that, seeing how many failures that we had, I was like, this is ridiculous. And so shifting to that, and again, I know there's other things we did too, but I will say that having the distraction-free classrooms really helped create this atmosphere and this expectation that in this climate, you're going to learn. In this climate, we're not going to yield to these distractions.
And from the student safety standpoint, I think the last bullet point also is important. Because they don't have their cell phones and they're not chatting, doing that, they're now seeking support through the channels that we actually would like them to seek support. So they're asking their teachers for help. Can we go see the counselor? Those conversations now, instead of like going to a peer, they're now going to the places that we already have set up to support them. And then lastly, just the return on investment, a statement that we discussed. If distraction-free classrooms equal returning the classroom to teachers, what amount of investment is that outcome worth? And we will end with that.
And so now we're going to, if you guys would transition, we're going to go ahead and hear from Onslow County Schools. But Dr. Jackson, I have no doubt you're very proud of the team that you have built. So we appreciate it. And then after Onslow County presents, we'll also open it up to questions so that everybody will come back up and make sure that you guys write your questions down because we'll have a discussion then.
Good morning. We are glad to be here. My name is Brent Anderson, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer for Onslow County Schools. If you're not familiar with Onslow County Schools, we are located down on the southeast coast, about an hour north of Wilmington, up Highway 17. There it is. And we have a student population of around 27,000 students. So it puts us about the 11th largest district in the state. We're the home to U.S. Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune and Marine Corps Air Station New River. And our median age in Onslow County is 27.1 years old. We're a relatively young county. So cell phones are a big part of our community and our culture and what we do. So we've been really working on what we can do there. As far as sites that we have in the school system, we've got about 43 schools in Onslow County. We've got a variety of high schools, 8 different high schools, 8 middle schools. We have 23 elementary schools. We have an early college, an alternative learning center, virtual school. We have an early childhood center. So we've got a lot of area that we cover. And if you look at our map of Onslow County schools, where the schools are located, you notice they're kind of in the area around. And right smack in the middle of Onslow County is Camp Lejeune Marine Corps Base. So physically, we're a little split up because of the base and the schools circling around where we have that. So we have some very distinct areas of where we serve and what we do. The Skeens Ferry area in the southern part, Swansboro in the east, Richlands, and then the central part made up of the southwest, Jacksonville, White Oak, and Northside communities as well. So joining me today, I have with me high school principal Brenda Herman, who is the principal at Jacksonville High School. And joining her is Alicia Hodell, and Hodell is the principal now at Swansboro Middle School. And I've asked these two to join me today because they have a unique connection to where we're at. And we're going to be talking more, I guess, kind of experientially of what we've gone through working with the implementation of the cell phone policies. Brenda is now the principal, was also the assistant principal at Jacksonville High School before that, and was there when they started implementing it at Jacksonville High School with the no cell phone policies. And Hodell was also at Jacksonville, but she was there as a teacher. And then she moved into an assistant principal role before becoming a principal at Swansboro Middle School. So they have a unique experience in terms of working with cell phone policies and what things look like at the school and actual practical implementation of that school or with it at that school. I have a connection to Jacksonville as well. I started teaching there, but when I started 36 years ago teaching at Jacksonville High and graduated there prior to that, we didn't have cell phones. It's not an issue. We had other issues we were dealing with. The cell phones wasn't one of them as far as what we were dealing with there. So to kind of set the stage of where we are and what we were doing and how we moved forward with the policy, coming off of COVID, I know that's a word that nobody likes to talk about much anymore, but coming back off of that, when we moved back into the classrooms in Onslow, after the year we were out, we came back in a hybrid A/B schedule day. So we were there half the week and not half the week, half kids there and half kids. And it was just kind of a mix of how that went. What we found is that there was a greater reliance among the students on technology. They were really plugged into what it was. And it was really hard to get students to unplug from their technology. And we found that cyberbullying and things of that nature were becoming a much bigger problem, just as our colleagues said before in their presentation. They were seeing a lot of those kind of things. I can tell you from my experience working as Chief Communications Officer, and I moved into this role after having been our secondary director for secondary education and been a middle school principal and teacher and high school teacher before that. We were finding that in working with schools to having to do messaging when there were threats online or things of that nature, we were very busy helping them to create messaging and get out things to their communities and families to deal with those kind of things. So I'm going to ask these ladies to share a little bit about what was going on and what it was like in that environment. And then we're going to come back and talk about the implementation of our policy and how we move forward and what that looked like as we've gone with that.
Good morning. So that first year, I had been off work for a few years, nothing personal, but I had cancer, so I was doing chemo for a few years, and I came back, and they put me at the largest school in the county as the assistant principal, so way to come back. But when I came back, the principal had recognized from the year before, she had gotten data from the teachers and looking at discipline data that was just off the roof, off the chain, because students were not engaged. They were, just as Chad was talking about, all those same issues. So we collectively made a decision to implement clear backpacks that year and a no cell phone policy. So over that summer, letters were sent out to every parent. Phone calls made, emails made out to let everybody know what that cell phone policy would look like. And we met with every 8th grader coming in at our freshman orientation to let them know it would be a no cell phone policy. And what that looked like was the minute the bell rang till the bell rang at the end of the day, no cell phones. They were powered down and put away, not visible. If they were seen, they were taken and they were turned into the office and a parent could pick them up at the end of the day. If they refused to turn over a cell phone, the teachers were told, don't engage, you asked for it. And if they refuse, then it becomes an act of defiance. You just write it up in educator handbook and an administrator would address it. And our policy, which we're firm on, is 3 days out of school suspension. Because it's really not about the phone, it's about the non-compliance piece, which we're not going to tolerate. Students quickly learned that that's what that would mean, and they understood it because we enforced it consistently every day. Did they try us? Absolutely. But teachers were also expected to follow that no cell phone policy during the day. So the minute the bell rang till the bell rang, nobody used their cell phone. I'm sure they stuck it under their desks during planning or in the bathrooms, which is what everybody does. We also implemented that every teacher would be required to have students sign in and sign out when they go to the bathroom and leave their phone on the teacher's desk, because of course they're going to try to sneak that phone and bring it to the bathroom. How did that end up going for us? Well, nothing was better than going into the cafeteria and seeing kids being kids, right? Talking, engaging. It was loud. We have about 500 students at Jacksonville High School at every lunch. We are the biggest school in the county, so it was a great place for us to start and establish a lot of routines and expectations with the students. Parents at the beginning were not thrilled that they couldn't get a hold of their students at the drop of a hat, but we designated a phone up in the front office, student phone only. If a student needed to come up and use the phone, all they had to do was just write their name and the time. We don't want to know who you called, if you need a phone number, whatever it is, but they were always available to be able to call as long as they had to pass out of class. I want Ms. Hodel to talk a little bit about the teacher perspective and then move into how it was with her as stepping into the assistant principal.
So my experience is a little bit unique. I've got a good unique perspective to this because my husband is a recently retired Marine, which is what brought us here to Onslow County. So I've worked in Illinois, California, Japan, and now here in North Carolina as both a teacher and an administrator in all of those locations. So my experiences in Illinois and California and Japan had been no cell phone policy, right? Like they didn't have a ban on cell phones. There wasn't anything specific school-wide. It was really just teacher discretion on how you wanted to run your own classroom. I found as a teacher, this made it very difficult to enforce a classroom policy when it wasn't being enforced school-wide. And then as an administrator, I found it difficult to support our teachers in enforcing their own classroom policy when, again, it wasn't a school-wide policy. So when I got here in 2022, my first year was a teacher at Jacksonville High School. And as I walked into the classroom, they said, oh, you know, this is our cell phone policy, by the way. If a student has their cell phone out, you confiscate it. And I was like, what? Really? Wow. I mean, this was like my dream come true, right? As a teacher coming from you know, a school where the kids would have their earbuds in when they're doing work, and they say, oh, well, I concentrate better when my earbud is in. But then when I'm trying to give instruction and they've got their earbud in, it just becomes that kind of battle. So walking in as a teacher, having that policy already school-wide and already established school-wide was just, I mean, it was such a game changer. I can kind of, I guess, echo what the teacher said with her experience, but I had unfortunately had the previous experience where I had to fight that battle. So then moving into the administrative role, like I said, it was a lot easier to support our teachers in enforcing that policy because it was a school-wide policy. And I can say even moving into, the role in the middle school, it is the same policy that we have at Swansboro Middle School, kind of mirrored what we had at Jacksonville High School. And I think we've only confiscated, I asked my front office staff just the other day, how many phones have we confiscated this year? And it was only 13. So, and that's for the full year. So the students know the policy. They really don't want their phone to be confiscated. The parents don't want to have to come pick up the phone because it is, an inconvenience for them, and they don't want to leave it at the school for a day or 2 days when they do have time to come pick it up. So just the fact that we have, the students are aware of the policy, they're aware of the consequences of the policy. The teachers are all on board with the policy. I think that that's been just a real game changer for us.
And just to add also that teachers never have to worry about if the student comes up and once they get called to the office, oh, well, I'll give it to you, the administrator, it's too late. We have to back those teachers. That's first and foremost. If they refuse to give the cell phone up to the teacher, we're gonna back them. And of course, every student, my mom texted me, she's having surgery, she's having her 9th baby in 3 weeks. There's always those excuses that they give. There's no reason for it. They all have a one-to-one laptop that they can email their parent can email them. They can get, and the students have gotten used to that. And parents do email them. We do get them calling the office to leave messages with our secretary. And she does, what does she do? She emails the student, or she encourages the parent to email. That has been super helpful. The other part that has been also interesting, we implemented last year in all the high schools, we have the Evolve weapons detection system. And so we know, we can see in their clear backpacks, because we still follow the clear backpack policy. No one can have an unclear backpack. It can't be mesh, it has to be clear. And we can see their phones if they're in there, or if they're trying to keep them on their person. So as they go through that system, the people monitoring it can let them know, remember, you have to be out at 7:05, that bell rings, it needs to be powered off and put away, which has been also very helpful in the implementation process. And I can happily say and celebrate that at Jacksonville High School, we are in the top 2% in growth for the state this last year. And I do attribute that we had 8.39% growth this past year, which was really great for us. And I do attribute a lot of that to our no cell phone policy and the fact that these teachers can teach without interruption, without having to worry about students being off task, and no earbuds, no cell phones, none of that. And that makes a huge difference, obviously, because we implemented that. This is our 4th year that we're going into. And so when we're looking at our data, you can see where that growth has finally come full circle. So
Even one of the major issues that I saw as a dean right outside of Chicago, when we would have fights in school, the first thing people would do is run toward the fight because they knew that it was happening with their phone out, and they would circle around this fight and everybody would be video recording this, this altercation. And as like an administrator, we couldn't even get in to assist in breaking this up because these kids were just so enthralled in what was happening and they wanted to get their video recording of this fight. So I'm happy to say that I have yet to see that since I've been here in North Carolina. And I attribute it to that cell phone policy, because if you are recording a fight, your consequences are similar to being an active participant in that fight.
So the cell phone policy they're referring to, we started it at various schools, kind of took the site-based initiative to do those things there. We did move to a district-wide policy. So in December of 2022, our policy committee met and adopted the 4318, which is the cell phone policy that we had currently in place prior to the passage of the law, which we've now gone back and revised. But we did start with that as a district-wide initiative. So that was in December of 2022 for implementation in beginning the 23-24 school year. So we didn't try to change gears mid-year. We did take some time during the spring semester to let parents know that this was coming. Schools were taking the initiative to put it out in their back to school information as we got to the end of the year and over the summer. Through our district communications, we did the same. We were very intentional every week in our weekly update, which gets a lot of views on that when we send those things out, to make sure we put in there that for 23-24, this was what it was going to be. Here's how it's going to work. We put that in there a number of times. It was on our website and our back to school information under what's new for 23-24. So there was a lot of good communication to let parents know about what was going on and how that was going to happen, what that looked like. And then when we came back to school that year, I can honestly tell you that we did not have as many issues from the communication side in terms of threats and bullying and such like that. And also, we didn't get a lot of pushback from our community. We were expecting a lot more. We'll talk some more about the outcomes and what they saw at the school level. Excuse me. But at the district level, from our communication standpoint, we were not getting a lot of information or a lot of news coming to us about why are we doing this and what's going on, and people upset and irate about what was happening. We had had some issues in our district prior to the implementation of this that had put an increased focus on safety and security in Onslow County. And I think we had done a good job during those times and the very challenging times dealing with issues that we had going on safety and security wise, that people were very open to this and they didn't see it as something that was an intrusion. Rather, it was something that was going to be helping to protect instruction. And that was the key that they mentioned there. I want to touch on one thing that Ms. Herman mentioned, which is the Onslow County Schools one-to-one policy, and our one-to-one program, I should say. Back in 2014, our school leadership, our superintendent at the time, made a commitment to providing all of our students with one-to-one laptop devices. We had been working on a tiered technology system for our staff over the time prior to that. And the first tier was getting teacher laptops in their hands. Tier 2 was going to be the instructional technology in the classroom, panels, at that time, smart boards and projectors, making sure teachers had that technology. And then Tier 3 was going to be the implementation of the one-to-one type program where the students were going to have the devices. So we've been doing a one-to-one program for now 11 years going on that now. We did it in a phased rollout of technology. It was weird. We started in the middle of the grade spans. So we started with like 6th, 7th, and 8th that first year, 5th, 6th, and 7th having that. And then we expanded out on either side of that as we went through over the next 4 years. So the one-to-one program has become a very important part of what Onslow County is and what we do. When we had this shutdown because of COVID, we missed 1 day of instruction before we were back up and running virtually the next day. We had a work day scheduled. Actually, it was oddly enough, the announcement was made. We had a work day. We turned the next day into a work day to prepare. And then the day after that, we were up and running virtually with the one-to-one devices. Our K2 students were a little behind because we had not quite pushed it down to that. But following Hurricane Florence, after that came through and the information, the issues that we had as a result of the damage in Onslow County schools, we did make a concerted push to get the K2 devices online as well. And I do believe that through the education that we've done with the one-to-one program about how to teach students to use technology responsibly, that has led to the success that we've seen with our no cell phone policy. One of the things that we've been big about and very intentional of talking about with instruction related to technology, it's kind of like with driving. You don't give a teenager the keys and say, here you go, have fun with your car. You teach them how to drive. They take classes, they learn, you explain how the technology works. You talk about the car, they have to go through the tests and they have the provisional license and all the things that lead up to them getting the full responsibility of having a driver's license. And technology is really not any different. We've got to teach the kids, and we've been very intentional about teaching the kids how to use technology appropriately. And now we've just expanded that over to the cell phone side. And the one-to-one program has paid a lot of dividends for the implementation and the smooth implementation of our no cell phone policies. So what we'll do now, talk about some of the outcomes that you've seen, some of the things that you've implemented at your schools to address what we're doing, and then we'll talk about some takeaways that we came up with as a result of our conversations that we had preparing for today.
So some of the, as I've already stated, but then even more, we spend the first week each semester going over our handbook with the students. So anybody who's new, anybody who might not be aware of the cell phone policy or any of our other policies, in homeroom, we go over that at length to make sure there is nobody who can say they don't know. The students sign a form saying that this has gone over, that it's gone over with them, so they understand what the expectation is. And then parents also get a letter that they sign in return, and we keep that on file. So just in case they ever say, I didn't know, you probably should read that before you sign something. Anytime a student gets their cell phone taken, we do have a form that parents have to sign when they come to pick up the cell phone. And we keep record of that so that we do have any kind of repeat offenders and that kind of thing. But we've also been able to use the cell phones as a reward. In Onslow County, because we have such a huge military population, we have to give out federal cards every year. If you're not familiar, every year that it's money that comes back to us from the federal government. Every student has to return a federal card. So We have 1,440 students at Jacksonville High School. So try to get 1,440 of those federal cards back is a lot of fun. So we implemented a couple of years ago a federal card fun Friday. And if you bring back your federal card by the next day, you get to come to Fun Friday, and you get to use your cell phone during that 45 minutes. You would think you're giving them a block of gold, right? 45 minutes of cell phone, but we have other things out there. We have all kinds of fun things out there. And believe it or not, the first year we were only missing 80 cards. And this year, we were only missing 60. But what I thought was the coolest thing ever was I was sitting out there doing drawings and stuff for kids, and I'm looking around, and you didn't see anybody with any cell phones. They were having the best time, and they could have cared less that they could. One kid checked his time and put it right back because he could. He was in the cell phone safety area of being out at the stadium. But it was the coolest thing as I'm whispering to other staff going, nobody has their cell phone out. Isn't that amazing? Now that they can do it, they don't want to do it, of course, like kids are. But it was just really neat to see that they're just so used to not having it during that time. They didn't need it. And we had people going around our photography club taking pictures and stuff and posting those pictures of the fun things going on. But it's just neat to see if you can provide an opportunity and you set that expectation, they're going to rise to that occasion.
So again, I have a little bit of a unique perspective because I've been able to experience this as both a classroom teacher and an administrator. So I've got to see both the academic outcomes as a classroom teacher and really the behavioral and social emotional outcomes as an administrator. So as a classroom teacher, I mean, it was so much easier to have the kids focus on what they should be focusing on. They're not distracted by their cell phones at any point in time during classroom instruction. As an administrator, I get to see students who are talking to each other at lunch and they're not, pulling out their cell phone the second they leave the classroom to check their social media during passing period. We have definitely seen a decrease in, the cyberbullying and the social media threats like Mr. Anderson had mentioned. I was so fascinated by this policy the first year that I was here that I've decided to write my dissertation on school cell phone policy specific to North Carolina. So I'm exploring the relationship between school-wide cell phone policy and student academic growth through the EBOS data. So any high school principal will be receiving an email from me if you have not already. Please fill out my survey so that I can complete my dissertation. And I'll be happy to share the results with you guys once I finish that. So I'm very happy that I was able to come into a county that had supported this type of policy, and I've been able to experience it as a teacher and an administrator.
So as far as the kind of some takeaways that we came up with after our discussion about what we're going to be sharing today. Consistent enforcement in all classrooms at all grade levels is essential. Holding staff accountable for following and enforcing the policy is essential. Staff need to model the policy. If we're asking the kids to do it, if it's not unreasonable for us to ask the adults to do it as well, we need to make sure that that is happening. Administrative support of classroom teachers, as Herman mentioned, that was a key to making sure that the policy is going to be put in place effectively. Having clear consequences. And this was an important one, working with students to identify the appropriate chain of notifying parents, especially regarding incidents, schedule changes, things of that nature. Parents know that they can contact the school and they can get up with their child if they need to. That's the way that it's going to work. When many of us were in school, we didn't have cell phones. My parents needed to get up with me at school. They called the school, and the school let me know what was going on. It's not too dissimilar to what we're asking to do today. Did you mention the phone, the dedicated phone in the office?
Yeah.
We got the dedicated phone that we have there. Focusing on bell-to-bell instruction. And one of the key ones that really didn't come up a whole lot, but we did talk about it as we were preparing for today, is picking your battles. And getting staff to understand also to pick the battles that they want to have with kids. Getting into an escalated confrontation in front of other students or in the classroom over a cell phone is never something that we want to encourage, but letting students know that this is how it's going to be. And if you're not, this is the consequence. And if you choose not to follow the rules, here's what's going to happen as a result. And letting our staff know that if there is an issue, to let us know and let the administration know, and they'll be there and they will support what's going on. That's going to be a key to having a successful implementation and what we have seen across the board with implementation of our policy. So we'd like to thank you for the opportunity and turn it back over to
Thank you so much. Okay, and Chatham, you guys can come back. We're gonna open it up to the council for any questions as I move back to my chair. Anybody have any initial questions? Just raise your hand. Yes, Representative.
I have two, that's all right.
Yeah, of course.
The first question, are y'all seeing any issues with non-cell phone devices like smartwatches, things like that?
Anyone can take it.
I mean,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
we just decided that we were not going to focus on smartwatches, mainly because you cannot video students with smartwatches. You cannot scroll social media with smartwatches, and it just is not the same type of distraction. So it just did not feel like it was worth the same kind of effort to put those in the pouches as well.
And we have included that, the issue of smartwatches and smart wearable technology in our policy update that we've done, the most recent version that we updated 4318. So it is addressed in the policy as far as whether they have them out or not. That one is not as big of an issue. Like you said, it's not, that wasn't the issue. It was the cell phones, definitely.
Thank you. And then the second question, I'd love to hear kind of a little bit more about sort of parent reaction from both of y'all. I know Chatham, y'all included the Parents Council when you were rolling this out. So I'm kind of curious, like it sounds like they were, really engaged in the beginning, but we did see kind of mixed results in terms of their feedback. So, do you have a sense of sort of what you subscribe to that or yeah, what do we, I'd love to hear a little bit more about parents.
A lot of work with parents along the way. We had parent nights at all of the schools and did that both years, in the pilot schools and then again this summer. And then I do think that we did see some mixed results, but I think overwhelmingly we have had parent support. We would have had a couple of parents at the beginning of the school year, both times to maybe call, but I don't think it'd be more than just a handful. And even one of the things that would have come back up would have been, what about your teachers? Are we going to ask the same thing of your teachers? And one of the things that Dr. Jackson did is he sent a letter out kind of really instructing principals, hey, we need to set aside a space for teachers so that they can go and take care of business in between classes. Cell phones should not be out for teachers during class time as well. So I think that was something that was really helpful. So we're going to model that. We had gotten used to having our cell phones out too, so we all try to be careful when we go to schools. Administrators, you did some things real
So we've
specifically.
switched to Google Chats because we have it available. So it's kind of similar to what we're saying with the one-to-one. So our teachers now use Google Chats. That's how we communicate. So we're not texting, we're not doing anything along those lines.
So we tried really hard to make sure that we were focusing so specifically on this distraction-free, giving the classroom back to the teachers, collaboration with the families. I think that was something that was really helpful.
And Onslow, I can imagine that parents having to come pick up the phone has probably helped a lot with getting people on board.
And I would even say like at the school level, parent pushback is minimal. I mean, we do have some here or there. But I think when we cite research that talks about the negative impacts of cell phone use with adolescents, then sometimes we can kind of get them on board.
And for the most part, after the first time, I think at the beginning it was just something so new. And after coming back from COVID, they were used to being able to get up with their student anytime, anybody. And most of the time it is a mom texting their son. I mean, believe it or not, when you say, let me see your phone, oh, God, it is your mother. But that it was more of a separation piece for a parent than it was for the student. But once we got over that hump, it took about a month. We haven't had anybody had any real heartache about it. They understand it. And we've asked for additional feedback. Is there anything you'd like to change? And of course, on our strategic planning committee meeting, the students always say, can we get rid of it? That's their first thing. Can we just get rid of it? And we say, no. Can you tweak it at all? they don't want to see any real tweaks. They're afraid it'll get worse. So they're just happy with what it is. And all the parents' feedback has been very positive.
I do want to add, we were really intentional with our families before implementation. We did have, Ms. Fowler mentioned it too, we did have family nights where we invited families for the feeder pattern. And we also wanted our principals to give the same consistent message. So if you're at this middle school that feeds into this high school, we wanted that consistency. So that helped just kind of to alleviate some of the fears. What happens when there's a drill? What happens if I have a doctor's appointment? Or if football is canceled, how do I communicate with my child? And so we had an opportunity. We invited all of our parents from our middle and high school. They came together in the auditorium. We had a presentation, but then we allowed them to ask those questions. And so that was really helpful too, to alleviate some of those fears. We did that during our initial implementation, and then again this year when we started with our other schools.
What other questions?
Thank you both for these presentations. Have you all talked about smart glasses at all? And then I have another question for Chatham once we do them.
The question about smart glasses has started to come up as they've become a little more popular and a little more affordable for kids. So that is something that we'll be looking at as well. I know we're getting ready to work on an update to our staff use of social media policy, and I believe that we do have a reference in there. We have a policy committee meeting tomorrow, and I think that we do reference smart glasses and smart wearable technology like that in our new policy as it relates to staff use of social media. But that's certainly one we're keeping an eye on as we go through.
Did you guys have anything?
And then what has been the, how much did it cost for the Yonder pouches? And then what's the repeat kind of expenditure around lost pouches or not lost pouches?
So
And when you also, when doing that, because school systems are so vastly different in size, can you also just remind everybody what is the student population for Chatham?
So we're right around 9,000 students. They're $25 a pouch. And what we're understanding is that they should last 4 or 5 years. And what we're doing is that if they are broken or they are lost, then the student will replace that, and that would allow us to then purchase a pouch as a replacement. And students would be assigned a pouch in 6th grade, carry that to 8th grade. Those would be recycled again to a 6th grader, same thing in high school. And that's our plan at this point. We have some extra ones for increased enrollment. So we'll see in the next few years and see how well we can maintain that.
A follow-up right before I go to you. Was that just out of your general budget? You didn't have? Yes, thank you. Yes, your superintendent was like, absolutely. Unfortunately, is actually what the real answer wanted to make.
What is the magnets cost?
They're part of the package.
Yes.
I was just curious, especially in the middle school context, around like what percentage of 6th graders or whatever grade have cell phones, and are there any considerations? Because it seems like a lot of the enforcement kind of assumes that everybody has one. And I kind of feel like there's this sort of lost generation where like parents just gave their kids everything, and now as a little bit of like a younger parent, it seems like everybody's really like, we don't want that for our kids. Because my kids are still in elementary school. So like with the checks and stuff, do you all just know that like this kid doesn't have a cell phone at all, and just what that kind of looks like?
Yeah, and so uniquely last year when we piloted, Horton is actually 5th grade through 8th grade. So we have 5th grade as well. And so when we piloted last year, we did 5th grade as well. And that was the first thing that came up, was there was probably out of the 110 kids, maybe only 20 that had cell phones. And so we were able to collect them back. And then we did an agreement similar with parents to say, when and if you do give your student a cell phone as a gift, the expectation is that you come, let us know, and we'll provide you back with that Yonder pouch. So then this year, similarly, 6th grade-ish is about the age. 5th to 6th grade is about when it happens, you're right. And so we just have a very clear understanding with parents that you can turn the Yonder pouch back into us, that's fine. But then on our documentation, like it shows that little Braden does not have his cell phone, but the parents understand that Christmas time's coming. So I expect the 1st of January, I'll be getting some phone calls like, hey, I need to get a Yonder pouch for my son or daughter. So 100%.
What other questions?
I think on your last slide, there's been something about, noting an increased use of student support staff after the Yonder Pouch implementation. Is that speaking to counselors? And then also like, what would you attribute that to as it relates to taking the phones away?
I don't know, our school nurse right here, how much increase do you think that you've seen?
I have seen an increase in the number of students that I see, but that's not always a bad thing because it's a barrier between the student going home. And my job as the school nurse is to keep the student in school as long as they are able to be there. So I do think that it's had a positive impact because I don't mind to see those extra students if it means that I'm keeping that student in the classroom where they need to be, because oftentimes students would text their parent to come pick them up. The parent would come pick them up, but the student really didn't need to go home. They just wanted to go home. So, I mean, I do feel like we have seen a little bit of an increase in the number of students that we are seeing across the district, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, it allows us to intervene, see the student, determine if they really do need to go home. And, you know, I don't ever make the decision for the parent to send their child home. I just present the facts and I give it to the parent and they can make the decision. But I do think it's helpful when they hear, you know, I'm seeing your child, they're asking to call you, this is what I see. And, you know, I don't usually say they shouldn't go home. I just say, this is what I see. I'll let the two of y'all make the decision on what you want to do. And more often, they allow the child to stay in school, and that's our job, is to keep the kid in school.
And part of like one-to-one is the other tools that we showed you. So the Gaggle, the GoGuardian, that kind of stuff. And so it's picking up, like if the student sends an email to a friend or sends an email to a parent or anything like that, it flags, right? And so we're able to use other tools and leverage other tools to make sure they get the support they need as well.
Or if they were previously sending or Googling something on their phone that was maybe of concern and should be filtered to a counselor, now they don't have a phone. So if they search that in their Chromebook, it does get caught, kind of swept in the right direction.
And similarly with us as well, we've got the Zscaler, we've got Gaggle, the other alerts that come through the Say Something system that we have, P3, so Raptor, all of those things are all part of what we have built in as well. And with the one-to-one, our system has done a good job of being able to filter content when they're using it on their own networks as well. So it's kind of hard baked into the operating system of the image that is put onto the laptops when the kids take them home. So that's been a big help for us as well. It was a lot of work on our IT department, but they did a great job with it. We're a Microsoft Office 365 district, so we're using a different platform than some are using, but we found that is a very helpful way to be able to monitor what kids are using their laptops for and what they're doing with them, even when they're not on our school campuses.
Yes. This is for either school. Have you been tested with an emergency situation? And what was the result? What did you learn?
One of our pilot schools last year had a lockdown. And what was actually amazing about that is that no information went out by a student. We were able to actually send all of the information from our district office to share to parents that there was a lockdown. And so that was so helpful. We did have 2 parents that came to the school that day, but they came because they were regularly coming to pick up their student. And so that was the most unbelievable, helpful thing, that information completely 100% came from us.
Well, I can say, I mean, unfortunately, we don't, I wish we did. So, I mean, we had that same, but we just had a soft lockdown last week. We had a situation across the street, down the street, and we went into a soft lockdown where everybody had to stay in. And we did get some phone calls because, of course, almost all of them came from them emailing their parents. So we got phone calls. So unless we're going to remove everything, parents are going to find out. And did we get some phone calls? Absolutely. But we sent out an all call like immediately to let parents know we're fine. They're fine. You don't need to come and get anybody. But it also gave us, another piece of information to kind of go back and discuss with the teachers and how quickly I need to send out a message to let everybody know as parents are concerned.
How has the use of laptops and being able to email in class impacted distractions?
I think the teacher, I mean, just doing classroom walkthroughs, I think the teachers do a really good job of letting their students know when it is appropriate to utilize a laptop and when it is not appropriate to utilize a laptop. So they'll tell the students to close the laptops and maybe put them on their desk. And really the only time that they are actively utilizing their one-to-one device is if it is teacher directed and the teacher is walking around the classroom monitoring what the students are doing on that device. So although they do have one-to-one devices, they're not using them constantly throughout the course of the school day. They're using them as directed by a teacher, and the teacher is monitoring what the students are doing through just walking around the classroom. So, I mean,
And the students are taught, they're at a level 1, 2, 3, whether it's either actively working, they put them hard down, or put them away as far as what level of engagement with the one-to-one.
And that goes back to the education that we've done about the one-to-one program since it was initiated. In Bridgetown, there was a 3-2-1, so if it's wide open, you're on, then you can have it halfway, or one that's closed. So the kids know where to put it. We have messaging, and I don't know that we still have as many of the posters as we used to have in the classrooms when we first started. But we did have they were visual 3-2-1, and they would know what level to put the teacher. Say, okay, laptop's at 2, and they put them halfway down, eyes on me, and so it goes back to. It was really funny as we talked about these. It really, for our situation, it got back into the basics of effective instruction and effective classroom management. Really, what are we asking teachers to do? How are they engaging with their students? And if they're standing there looking at a screen and that's all they're doing, of course the kids are going to be doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. But if they're on screens and teachers out and teachers walking around and moving around the classroom, they're involved and engaged with their students in active instruction in the classroom, it's going to have a big impact on how they're using those one-to-one devices.
And the 3-2-1 has really helped our new teachers, especially any teachers who are coming to us and they haven't been trained. They're not coming from a training program. This gives them an idea of, okay, this is the verbiage I should teach. That's what they're learning. They're getting in every classroom. So that already gives them a tool to use.
Our students can email outside of the district. Then GoGuardian allows our teachers to see the computer screen so they can shut down their computer if they're doing something off task. And then Gaggle would alert administrators if there's something that they're looking up that's concerning.
Any other last minute burning questions?
All right, well, let's thank our. Stay, you're welcome to go, whatever suits your needs.
Okay. All right, so just do some reflection on the presentations that were done. Just a great job from Chatham and Onslow. Are there any additional thoughts that the committee as a whole has about the presentations or anything that we need to think about as additional recommendations? I will tell you that the next step for us moving forward is that we're going to create a video that will respond to the governor's request for us to have a report in December. And so we will do that. But as you know, the law doesn't go fully in effect until January. And so the governor's office has gone out and trying to do a survey of all school districts and find out where they are as far as implementation. But as we said, it's not, doesn't have to be in place until January. So they've got some time still until that has to be in place, but they're trying to find out what's exactly going on. So we just want to open up the floor if there's any additional reflection or ideas that you guys have on things that we need to look at as far as the cell phone policies or anything that you heard today that we need to take into account.
I just really appreciated seeing two school systems that are dealing with it in very different ways, but still vote very effectively. So it was helpful to see kind of how schools might be able to fit it to their particular district.
And I think we're wrestling with this right now in Durham and realizing smart glasses are more popular than they used to be. I think they're like $300 now. So how do we start thinking about maybe forward going into what other devices might be coming up? That just be. I think there's another thing called Guardian Angel that a lot of students who have special needs families have used to help monitor where they are and that kind of thing. So as we've done this, I'm like, there's a lot more technology than we've thought about than just a cell phone. And so what does it look like us for keep evolving this policy as well?
I think we also need to think about, so we're talking about what we do during the school day, but do we also start thinking broadly, and I know some other groups are doing this now, about algorithms and how, what we're using to address. I mean, when they go home, they still have people targeting them with different content and different ideas, and I think that's probably our next step to think about too, is how do we start addressing some of those targets.
For whatever reason, I'm a glutton for punishment because I'm also on the Child Fatality Task Force Committee. So what we did, and it's really interesting you should bring that up, is that we were talking about the addictive algorithms within all of these different apps, and also how a lot of kids are turning to like chat to actually build friendships instead of talking to some. And some of those algorithms have actually encouraged kids to commit suicide, and they have actually been sued. And so to your point, it's the entire world of creating, God help our kiddos. Having to grow up in this society with all of the other changes and information that they get through social media and other areas. And so I do think that it's a great point that you make with regards to what do we do with the algorithms and how do you equip parents to know how to regulate and to monitor their children's apps. I mean, my kid thinks that he lives in a terrible household because I had the Bark app, and I will be like, oh, you sent this text. That was let's have this be a teachable moment about why you, as a 14-year-old without a frontal lobe that's been fully formed, should not send these things. But that is what a parent is supposed to do in that space. But a lot of parents don't even know that those things exist, and so I think that's a really great point to make with regards to other topics that we should address. Any other thoughts?
I just think, just hearing about the consistency, I think that's one of the things that we had talked about when we were thinking about the policy, and kind of hear from, I think, the teachers that came in and presented to us at the very beginning about that enforcement, but hearing that how the admin has the back of the teachers, I think that's really important, something that was great to hear about.
Yes.
I would wonder, is there an opportunity to perhaps launch a statewide survey after a year or even the 6 months of implementation to get feedback from PSUs and students and parents about the policy, and even maybe asking a question to PSUs about whether or not they used our guidance document that we provided, so that can continue to be a tool that's valuable.
Would piggyback on that. I think that's a great idea, both for us to understand how it's working on the grounds, but also I think a lot of school systems are interested in maybe having more restrictive usage but aren't quite sure like where to turn with the Yondr pouches, or how they're going to do it. And so having something similar to like having Chatham and Onslow being able to explain what they've been doing is helpful to make it more tangible for school systems, or it could also come through this form of like a survey like that. I don't know if it ends up being like a spreadsheet or something where you can just kind of break down the different implementation steps and what they're doing to bring about the policy. I think would be helpful for other school systems looking to do more than they do.
That's a great point, because you have 115, as we talked about, 115 different systems that we're talking about. And you have one that, like in Wake, has 160,000 students, and then you have Chatham with 9,000. And so if you talk about a Yondr pouch, 160,000 times, what, 25? That's a lot of money to take out of your budget, right?
Do the math. You said
Yeah,
you're gonna
I
do
can't, look, that's why I was an English major. Let me very clear, that is why. I will go ahead and do alliteration like one of the individuals back there. I was like, ooh, look at that alliteration. That gets me excited. But what I would say is that, in looking at these policies, I think that's right. Like trying to figure out best practices, because there is a carrot or a stick approach, and there could be the 3-day suspension so everybody learns the first time. And especially if you don't have the funds or just don't want to go through that, trying to navigate that. So great point. Any other questions or comments? All Well, it's our favorite time, break time, y'all. We're gonna go ahead and take a 15-minute break and then we will come back together because the one thing that Billy and I like to do is be efficient and get you guys out of here on time. So we have a 15-minute break. We'll be back at 11:17.
There's food out in the
The bottom line's really
Yeah.
bad. Make it harder for people. That's
Okay. All right, welcome back, everybody. What we're gonna do next is break up into our subcommittees. And so each of the subcommittees that met in September, that you were a part of, you'll go back to those subcommittees. Two of them are gonna meet in here, the health and, well-being one will be in here. So that's the mental health one, and the physical health one will be in here. And then the student safety will be in 131, which is right around the corner. And I'm in that group, so I can help lead folks to that subcommittee. So if hopefully everybody remembers which one you're a part of. If you don't, then we can help you figure that out. And the other two are right here.
Right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Well-being on this side, and physical health will be on that
Oh,
side.
Before people
Before-
break though, yeah, I need your,
Yeah.
the committee, you guys, the public can go wherever you deem necessary. But before we leave for the committee, I just need to make an official motion, so I'll do that now. So I wanna make a motion to go into closed session. And whereas the Student Safety and Wellbeing Advisory Council is required to discuss certain operational components of school security measures, and whereas the council finds that the discussion of these matters requires a closed session to preserve confidentiality as outlined in GS 115C-105.54B. Now therefore be it resolved that the council hereby moves to go into closed session pursuant to GS 143-318.11 subsection A1 to discuss the following matters: panic alarm system implementation, school risk management planning application, and the state emergency response application. Be it further resolved that the closed session will be conducted in accordance with the applicable laws and regulations governing the confidentiality of the meeting, and that the public and media are excluded from this portion of the meeting. All discussion during the closed session shall be limited to the permissible purpose or purposes cited in the motion duly made and adopted. The council shall reconvene in open session following the closed session to discuss any actions, if applicable, or adjourning the meeting. And then the council will naturally go back into open session. And so at this time, do I have a second for that motion? A second. Thank you, Representative Prather. And I'll just call for the ayes and noes. Everyone that supports the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? All right, now we are officially going to be in closed session in just that one working group, and everybody else in the other two, please stay here. We have an hour and then we'll come back and report out. Thank you so much. Will you tell me which side of the room do you want? We'll do student physical health over here.
Okay.
Student physical health this way. And then the physical health. Yes, right.
Session today.
It worked, we all, the entire city of North Carolina is going to get session today. But I'm good.
You have a, take a flash.
There's two. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, once you minimize it, there should be a link on, it's actually on the. I put up for, and it just get a video. I'm right there, give me 2 seconds.
That's good. Somebody speak? No, okay, we're good. You know what?
be a common recurring theme from each meeting, that the discussion is really good in the subcommittees and, if there's anybody that has a burning issue that you want to bring up as far as something you learned in the subcommittee that you think that the whole, group wants to hear, feel free to do that. I will say before we do that we have, ended the closed session for the subcommittee. So we are back to open sessions and the mics are live and, just want to make sure you know that before you say anything, but, anything that anybody wants to close out with real quick that you learned from your subcommittee that you think the whole group needs to hear? All right, y'all ready to go? I get that. Making sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, I will remind you that the feedback form is in your packet. We really would appreciate that feedback. So the feedback form that's in your packet, if you'll fill that out, and if you don't want to do it while you're here, you can certainly email that into us if you would like. But if you'd like to drop off a copy of that, that's very helpful for us to know what's most beneficial moving forward for the meetings. So you can provide that to us. Elena did send out an email a couple of, I think it was last week, that asked if you would like to be one of the people that helps review the overall document that's going to go out in June of next year. So if you're one of those people that would like to volunteer to kind of help edit that document, we'd love to have some volunteers. I'm not sure how many she's gotten from folks already, but if you're one of those people that would is good at editing and has some thoughts about especially the parts that are going to show up for your subcommittee, that would be a great way for you to be involved in the processing of writing up that report. We will have the video, as we talked about earlier, that will be released on the cell phone implementation. We will have that ready in December. And our next meeting is going to be January 26th, and that will be from 9 to 11. And so any of the stuff that you heard about today, from your subcommittee, if there's something that you want to hear more about, if you've got ideas about things that you would like to hear more about from your subcommittees, that we could bring somebody else in as an expert on, you can shoot those ideas to me and Elena, and the other chairs. And we'll be glad to see if we can try to get somebody in to address those particular issues. If there's a particular recommendation that you feel like came out of your subcommittee that you want to make sure is going to be included in the overall final report, you can certainly send those along to us also. And I think I've covered everything. Any questions? Any new business before we close up? All right. Anybody want to move to adjourn? All right. So done then. Thank y'all so much.